Welcome to the bold analysis. This is a video. The video I want to analyze is one that I've been keeping tabs with for some time. And I can categorically tell you that in this video I'm going to reveal to you why William Ruto's government, foreign interest in his presidency, might be the greatest impediment on his leadership if it is not controlled. I have seen politicians talking about state capture all over. It has been defined in different interviews, in framing it as just a way of Uhuru Kenyatta, the former regime, former president, benefiting from his own government. But what we are going to look at will open your eye to make you see that some of the things that are happening in this country is not just by coincidence. The scares by our neighbors are not just by mere coincidence. And what does our foreign interests, not foreign interest by foreigners in this country, what are kind of threats and risk that we expose ourselves to? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you to subscribe to our channel if you're watching for the first time. Kindly click the notification bell, and also today share our video. Of course, this is a good day. You can also share our video to one or two people so that we'll also get new viewers and grow this channel from one level to the other. Here, we keep it very informative and very objective. Recently, let me just tell you something very short, a story that I actually read in Nation. That the day before inauguration, there was there is an economy journalist on economic affairs from the East African, I think, newspaper, who met with a contingent of, with a group of investors that had flocked in the country to attend William Ruto's swearing in. That was a day before, and they were in this country even 3 days later. Some of them, like Aliko Dangote, the richest guy, I think, in Nigeria, if I'm not wrong, from Nigeria, with investments all over, I think Uganda and Tanzania. And Ayadin, who was William Ruto's buddy and investor from Turkey. Those are just two that were captured on camera. And even at the height of, by the time William Ruto's president was becoming a reality, there were business leaders across the globe who reached out to President Ruto. So this reporter was saying that these investors were very happy, and they gave him a blow-by-blow account on the kind of expectations and their high affinity for William Ruto's presidency. So, by large, exactly what they were trying to say and what their confession was, that they wanted to invest in the country some time back, but the criminal justice system locked them out. Transactions, remember the issue about the transactions? Some of their companies were flagged and could not operate. The criminal justice system, like the DCI team, would take them to court. Some of their accounts would be freezed, facing allegations of tax evasion, of course, this and that. And maybe after some time, then High Court, trying to make convictions, High Court will then set them free. And by the end of it, you will find out that the environment was not so stable. So this reporter was saying and was making an observation that On Ruto's presidency, there is a big secret, there is a big interest by the foreigners. And the international community is not left behind. Just to jog up your mind, William Ruto has a direct link with Nigeria. Remember, the son-in-law is from Nigeria. And quite a number of friends from that end. Nigerians are part of the foreigners in this country that really is reported the same story, that went through a lot during President Uhuru Kenyatta's reign, because there was a crash for wash. And that crash for wash, some of the victims that were found that are people from that end. And so at one point, even President Buhari had to intervene to help. So this just explained to you what exactly would be. And that's why when people say freedom is coming, that's probably what they meant. The Venezuelan infiltration of the Kenyan election is a matter that remained unresolved. And while many would ask, wondering why would Kinoti be pushed to resign or would Kinoti resign? Remember, the question of Venezuela was not conclusively told to Kenyans, even after meeting the IBC. And that really expressed and portrayed the fact that there was infiltration of the international community. And I can categorically tell you guys that the Western powers, or not the global community, had a stake in Ruto's government. This is more of international politics now, but of course we are localizing it here with the Kenyan context. Remember, U.S. ambassador was all over the U.S., was all over in the Bomas of Kenya. The diplomatic mission were full in Bomas of Kenya when the results were being announced. And I remember the U.S. The U.S. ambassador was criticized because they gave 3 advisories against traveling to Kisumu. That at the height of when results were coming, when the Supreme Court was out, they gave and she was criticized. Remember that the ambassador was changed some few days to the election, very short moment to the election, and she was criticized to have been working closely, that he was supporting William Ruto. These are some of the powers, and people have actually there have been those conversations that was the government installed by some of the powers. Is it about the will of the people? Even though I don't want us to get into that. So this has been seen, and I made another observation when William Ruto was making the maiden trip in Parliament. We saw some diplomatic missions there. They were invited there. Yet to confirm whether the U.S. ambassador was there. But of course, it also understands some of these people wanted to have a very conducive donor environment. So there is a lot of interest that comes into it. And I want to say that while I want to appreciate that it comes with the benefits of upscaling investments, foreign investments in the country, but it has its own shortfalls. Because on the other end, people are coming to invest, but they are also invading a market. They are flocking this market with the foreign shilling, with the foreign currency, and they have enough. One of the things is some of them come here with duplication of companies. For example, in this country, we have companies that produce cement. And there are those investors that we know have interest in those areas, and they will still come here. And because there is another environment, maybe try to do some value addition, but introduce a product that still exists. So in the long run, even the local businesses, some of them do not thrive. The local investment is also hampered, even though we understand that this is a matter of market strains. However, I want to say that this kind of interest, to me, is something that is worrying. And that is why when you saw the Ugandan soldier boss making threats to Nairobi, it was more, to me, it was no more just fake and dismissing. There is something to it, and it opens the lid on our foreign policy, the foreign stake in our country, and what exactly we are dealing with. The second aspect that this brings is unfavorable policy on imports. Remember, we export flour, horticulture. One of our exports, I think, is tourism. Tourism is our export, by the way. Tunauza. Though it's an export that is not easy mobile, it's an export here. And tea. Our tea is one of the best in all over the world. People in Dubai will tell you that want tea from Kenya. The organic foods are from this area. Now, however, we also have our imports. I want to use a very good example. There have been a story, and if you follow keen, you realize that there was a story, not a story, but there is a reporting that emerged that we were able to buy, we could still buy cheap fuel from Russia or somewhere, but we're buying fuel from sources that are expensive. But it's because we are favorable, we are kind of tied to those countries, even though we know that they are selling to us fuel at prices that are lower, and we know somewhere else we can get. So when you have such friendships, it doesn't augur well, and sometimes it influences your import. For example, closest home, fertilizer. Did you know that the subsidized fertilizer was from Morocco? And because Morocco was giving us fertilizer, when there was that altercation between the Moroccan country and that Assad country, and that other country they were fighting with, we had to, just in a short while, we were in a diplomatic tiff where we recalled association with one country that was fighting with Morocco, but then it was against the wish and the will of the UN, and we had to rescind those decisions. So you can see how we found ourselves in some very uncomfortable situations, in very embarrassing environments, because of those foreign links. Of course, I say that cooperation between governments, bilateral and multilateral talks are important, but then it also has its own, and that's why I say that some of these policies may not, and we may find ourselves going good areas that are not. Now, regional conflicts. These regional conflicts emerge, and some of them are engineered back home, where one country or some feel like this is not it. Now, as we talk, China, US, and France, and these European and the Asian countries are struggling to get our attention. Sisi tumekuwa bikira, tunatafuta kila mtu. Today, that was on Monday, there was a mission, a delegation from US that was sent by Biden. China is calling every day, knocking, asking, how are we going to work together? Now, this interest can explode and actually engineer some regional conflicts, especially within home. But lastly, strained review of our debt servicing. I want you to imagine, we have SGR here, we've reverted some port operations, and it seems that decision do not augur well with the paper that we had, the agreement that we had with the people that helped us made that SGR, because they were supposed to pay themselves from it for some time before giving it back to Kenyans. And we want to review debts. Someone might have supported during campaigns, or might have supported to install government and talk to Raila. It's not that easy. The Secretary General of UN had to speak with Raila. Called Raila, and I know Raila never just said what exactly they discussed, but there was something. So I wanted to make this on the international politics that is playing home. It's one of the most interesting, and if you you follow international politics, you'll really understand that this will make you put the Kenyan situation into a context. We're dealing with a more complex situation where I want to believe, and I've always said, and I continue repeating, if there were forces within this country that wanted election to go otherwise, they would have. Which were those powers that were above those? And the local, the deep powers. That's why I talk about the deep forces. I talk about unmasking the deep forces that stopped Raila Odinga presidency. And they're back. You're dealing with it, but William Ruto is shrewd and lethal and is meticulous. It's a test of time to see how it points out. And ladies and gentlemen, that's my bold.